Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going kind of hyper local. We're heading over to the Faroe Islands, and we're going to really be looking at like the everyday stories that kind of shape life there. So we're kind of moving beyond like the election buzz and all of that, and like really trying to get a feel for what's happening on the ground.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're peeking through the windows of a community, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we have some great sources to kind of help us do that today. We've got Kringvarp Faroe, Invart Ofiavol, and VP.fo. And, each one kind of gives us a slightly different lens on these local happenings. So where should we start?
Well, one thing that kind of jumps out at me from looking at these sources is how a lot of these stories really highlight the power of individual action.
Oh, okay, I like that. So like what's an example of that?
We'll take the Skalavik election, for instance. It was a total nail-biter. It was decided by a single vote, according to Kringvarp Faroe.
Wow, that's amazing. It really is a reminder that every vote counts, especially in a smaller community like Skalavik. I imagine that impact must feel even more tangible.
Absolutely. And it kind of speaks to a larger trend that we're seeing in the Faroe Islands right now, a real focus on community needs and engagement at a very local level.
Yeah, okay, tell me more about that.
Well, Inchava reported on Landsverk's decision to build a new bus stop in Lanum. Now, this might seem like a small thing, but it was a direct response to safety concerns that were raised by parents in the area.
So it really shows that like local authorities are listening and taking action, and that people can make a real difference just by voicing their concerns.
Exactly. And it's not just about like infrastructure either. There's also a real push for greater representation in local government. VP.AFA highlighted the emergence of Kvinnelistar, which are women's lists in Sunda and Survar Kommuna, and these groups are specifically aiming to boost the number of women in local government.
Yeah, that's fascinating to see these movements kind of gaining traction. It'll be really interesting to watch how they impact local decision making in the future.
Definitely. And it really ties back into that theme of individual action influencing the community as a whole, whether it's casting a vote or raising safety concerns or advocating for greater representation. People are really actively shaping their local
It's
environments.
like a ripple effect where like even small actions can create bigger waves of change.
Exactly. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about Suni e Jolam.
Hmm?
Instofo referred to his win in Neskomuna as a kanonval, which essentially translates to a landslide victory.
A landslide, huh?
Yeah,
So that suggests he has a massive amount of support from the community.
precisely. And it gives him a really strong platform to enact his vision.
I wonder what factors contributed to such a decisive win. Was it like his campaign promises or his personality or his like deep roots in the community? It would be interesting to look into.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a question worth exploring further. Sometimes the why behind an event is just as interesting as the event itself.
Totally agree. So we've got community action, political shifts, a landslide victory, all before we've even touched on the cultural side of things.
Right, and there's some really fascinating stuff happening there. So speaking of the cultural side of things, there are a couple of book releases that really caught my eye.
Oh, really? To tell.
Well, one is called Han Mer Helder Fast, and VP.fo didn't give us too many details about it, but they did mention that there's going to be a book launch event. And it sounds like they're going to be discussing Faroe's linguistic
Oh,
heritage.
that sounds really cool.
Yeah,
It makes me think about the importance of preserving language,
yeah.
and how that ties into cultural identity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you're safeguarding a piece of history and making sure that it continues to thrive.
Mm-hmm. And what about the other book? What's that one about?
Well, this one is a bit lighter in tone, I'd say. VP.fo mentioned a book called Taktalagur I Eri og Seri, and from what I gather, it kind of explores life in a weather-beaten land.
I love that. Sounds like a humorous take on the Faroes experience,
Yeah.
embracing the challenges that come with living on these rugged islands.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good reminder that even amidst all the serious stuff,
Hmm,
there's always room for laughter and finding the joy in those everyday moments.
absolutely. Speaking of everyday moments, did you see the story about Andrea Sophia Raghild Paulsen? Both VP.fo and in.fo covered her 100th birthday celebration.
Oh, yeah. It's so heartwarming to see a community come together like that to celebrate a milestone like that. I think it really speaks volumes about the respect and care for elders in Faroe society.
Yeah, definitely. It's a beautiful reminder that life is full of stories and each one deserves to be honored and remembered.
Yeah. And sometimes those stories can really surprise us. Did you happen to see the article in Varfo about the book launch that discussed the question, does Faroes have a valuable word hoard?
I did, yeah. What an intriguing question. Makes you think about the richness of language and how it reflects the unique experiences of a people.
Mm,
So cool.
absolutely. And that connection to language and heritage is clearly very important to the Faroes people. It's just another example of how they're really actively preserving their cultural identity.
It's amazing how we've gone from a single vote, deciding an election, to celebrating a 100th birthday.
Mm,
And it all feels connected somehow.
yeah. I think that's the beauty of exploring local news, isn't it? It's like weaving a tapestry of community life, thread by thread, story by story. And as we zoom in on these seemingly small events, we start to see larger themes emerge.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious, what themes stand out to you?
Well, I've touched on the power of individual action, the importance of community engagement,
Hmm.
and this deep connection to language and heritage. But I think there's something even deeper here.
Oh, intrigue me. Tell me more.
I think it's a sense of resilience. All of these stories, from the bus stop to the book launches, they all kind of speak to the Faroes people's ability to adapt and to persevere, and to find like beauty and meaning in their really unique environment.
I love that. It really is like a thread that's running through all these seemingly like disparate events,
Yeah.
connecting them in a way that really speaks to the heart of the Pharaoh's identity.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's something we can all learn from, no matter like where we live or what challenges we face. There's always a way to find strength and to connect with our own communities
Mm.
and to celebrate the richness of our own cultures.
That's a powerful takeaway. So what can like our listeners do to tap into that same sense of resilience in their own lives?
Well, I think it starts with paying attention. Notice those small things, those everyday moments that make up the fabric of your own community. Engage with your neighbors, support local businesses, explore your own cultural heritage. These seemingly small actions can have that ripple effect, creating a stronger and more resilient community for everyone.
It's like that saying, think globally, act locally.
Hmm.
Even the smallest actions can make a difference.
Absolutely. And who knows, you might even uncover some fascinating stories along the way.
I know I have today. I've learned so much about the Faroe Islands beyond just the election headlines.
Yeah, me too. It's been great diving deep into these local happenings with you.
And for our listeners, if you want to kind of keep exploring, we encourage you to check out the sources that we mentioned, kringvarp and vpp.fo. You can find links to those in the show notes.
Yeah, and if you're feeling adventurous, maybe pick up a copy of one of those books that we were talking about. You might just discover your new favorite author.
Until next time, keep diving deep, keep exploring, and keep celebrating those stories that make our communities so unique.